Good morning, everyone. We're going to give just a few more seconds for people to come in, and then we'll get started. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, and welcome to today's Recovery Summit session, The Dangers of Kratom. This webinar is part of the Recovery Summit series hosted each September by St. Clair County Community Mental Health in recognition of National Recovery Month. A few quick reminders. Today's session is being recorded and will be available on the St. Clair County Community Mental Health YouTube channel, probably in the beginning of October sometime. Also, please use the chat box for any questions or comments. Our presenter will address them as time allows. For those requesting continuing education credits, please be sure to remain on the webinar for the full session and complete the survey that will be emailed to you. And now, today, we're honored to be joined by Michigan State Community Service Trooper Corey Hebner. Welcome,
Hey, good
Corey.
morning. Hey, thank you. Appreciate you guys letting me come back. I didn't know that that was even possible. So nice to know that I didn't wear out my welcome. Michigan State Police has 18 community service troopers around the state. So if you have friends that are interested in this and you're able to share this PowerPoint, let them know because this is one of these things that's kind of growing. All of us around the state, it's kind of a big picture of where we are and what we represent. Not every post, we have 31 posts throughout the state. Not every post has a community service trooper, but we try to make at least 2 or 3 in each district around the state. And one of the cool things or, interesting things, 9 years ago when the state police started their Angel program, which was aimed at opiates and to try to get people off addiction, I was kind of the guinea pig. And because of that, one of the byproducts, in addition to trying to get people into treatment, I'm on the board for NMORC up in northern Michigan, based out of Gaylord. And NMORC, this is one of the questions that keep coming up in trainings. What is Kratom? And so we're going to try to define a few of these things today, talking about its use, its side effects, some of the dangers of using it, and precautions that we have to think of when we have people either anecdotally or trying to microdose and what it means and how they use it. And then some of the legal concerns. Right now in Michigan, Kratom is legal, but there are several states where it isn't. And so we'll kind of talk about that. We do have restrictions here in Michigan. And so we'll also get into them. And then we'll talk about what it looks like in other products because that's the other side effect, right? And we saw this with CBD and medicinal marijuana, where you had one side just wanted marijuana, raised the THC level very, very high, just to get stoned, right? And it was put in products, drinkables, edibles as well. Then we also saw the other side, more of the hemp side, where we're trying to make higher concentrations of CBD with no THC involved because there is a little bit of pain relief and health effect. And so Kratom was kind of along those lines too. So what is Kratom? It's a plant. It comes from the Mitragina plant, which is very similar to coffee. It's a tropical evergreen and it's grown in Southeast Asia. So most of what we see, the use of kratom, is from the dried leaf. And so we'll kind of go through a little bit of that. Uh, Sometimes we see this used as a stimulant. Um, it's really interesting because a lot of the times what we see is in a younger plant, or if it's harvested really early, it has more stimulant effects. And if it's allowed to mature on the plant, it has more sedative effects. And so the urban legend is, and we see this in treatment and the mental health and the substance use communities run pretty parallel. The urban legend is that we can use kratom to withdraw off of opium dependence. We also hear a lot of different things, but that's the one big thing that we kind of focus on or hear a lot of in our tracks. A lot of what we see can be used in a lot of different forms. One is if it's dried and then it's pressed or put in a pill form with some sort of capsule. People can either swallow it or chew it. We also see it dried and used like a tea. We see it added to foods, but we can also see people trying to microdose where they get very, very specific with the drying effects of the plant, and a lot of how it's dried, the type of environment that it's dried in actually changes the property of the plant. And so it's really interesting that small doses usually see that stimulant effect, and if we use more of a larger dose, it usually sedates and decreases pain. So it's really an interesting thing. The problem is and we're going to hear about this in a little bit. I got a couple clips from the TV show The Doctors, which I know we all love, right? Sarcasm added. However, they bring up some really good points. At low doses, again, it works like a stimulant, and then usually as more kratom is used in higher doses, we can see a euphoric effect, but it also dulls the emotions, the sensations, and how or why it gives that pain relief. The interesting thing, very, very similar to cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome that we saw with marijuana, kratom can be passed from mother that's using to infant through breast milk. So again, we saw in the state of Colorado, here in Michigan, where people actually said if you're a chronic user of marijuana, you may not want to breastfeed while using. And we all know the effects of breast milk. And so, how do you weigh the pluses and minuses of telling patients that? It becomes very problematic. So real quick, let's sneak right to the first video.
Daniel, starting with you, what is your big concern when you look at a product like this and say, you know what, this should be illegal or not available readily?
It hits opioid receptors. There's nothing else in the diet that hits opioid receptors.
That's incorrect. Chocolate,
On
cheese,
the level
spinach.
that was studied prior and during my time at FDA, it's a direct agonist to opioid receptors. It's being sold as a dietary supplement. One, dietary supplements by law don't treat chronic pain. They don't treat disease. They certainly don't treat addiction. That should be done to care professionals like this. And there's no magic bullets, I think everyone knows, for addiction. I mean, it's a lifelong process. So I think that's one. And two, there are gates for the regulatory process in this country, whether it's as a food or as a drug. It's great that people are impassioned, but we do a lot more than that in this country than just be passionate. That's why we have the safest food supply. That's why we have the safest drug supply, is we look at things in a way with scientific rigor, so we're assured that 2 years down the road, we didn't go, uh-oh, we made a big mistake.
Gentlemen, you both are addiction specialists. It can be so very difficult and so hard to get people who become addicted to opiates to find their way out. You have people who are proponents of this saying, this has helped me. Your thoughts on this, given how difficult, obviously, it can be for someone who's trying to overcome an addiction?
I'm a CEO of a drug and alcohol treatment center in Arizona, and I've been in this industry for 25 years. And, the problem is a magic bullet. And there's a misperception because it's readily available that it's not problematic. And we have a medically managed detox that's Joint Commission accredited, which means it's the high standard level of care in the country from a hospital perspective, with doctors and nurses around the clock helping people withdraw from substances. We don't use this in our detox. Why? Because there's no data for it to use it from that methodology. There are those cases, just like we have successful cases with Dr. Holcomb's son. There's those clients that I talked to just last week about, a woman told me kratom made me cray-cray. It was like the same detox protocols for heroin and for pain pills are used for kratom in our detox.
And since this acts on opioid receptors, do people also experience withdrawal when
Absolutely,
they stop
yes.
with this?
Yes, they do. And again, it's
yeah.
not, everyone's chemistry is different, right? And I challenge our industry to do a better job of individualizing our assessments and our care and our treatment and our detox. And everyone's going to react to it differently.
And Ken, I'll ask you this, because as an addiction specialist, is your concern with this that it's readily available, that I can go into a smoke shop and pull it off the shelves?
Yeah.
Or is it that, this has no place, period, in treatment of addiction?
Absolutely. It's so available. I mean, you get people in treatment, and my experience is 95 of the people I meet aren't using it for pain. they're using it to get high. They're using it for abuse. So they'll come into a treatment center or sober living, and they'll go get it over the counter, and when they get it, it's not detected in the 12-panel test that we do. So that's where my concern is that people are still going to abuse it, and it's going to create even more of a nightmare that we're already going through in our country.
The American Kratom Association did a survey of 6,000 Kratom consumers for the reasons why they use this, and only 1.6% said it was for recreational use.
Yeah, but there's 3 million people using it. So
3 to 5 million people.
If you're getting high on it, you're not going to volunteer for your study.
No, that's not.
Has anybody actually, maybe you could answer my question, has anybody actually studied an appropriate dosage or a withdrawal protocol or any of the side effects in kind of a safety and efficacy study that we would hope for a medication?
You nailed it. No, they haven't.
I'd like to frame the discussion a little bit on mental health. 13% of our population takes antidepressants in this country. 70% will experience depression. 1 in 5 people have serious mental health illness. Of 20 million people were treated in 2009 for addiction, only 1.2 million went to an accredited treatment program. They can't afford it. So most of these people you see under the bridges and on the streets, their families hadn't have money, they didn't have the money, they couldn't go see somebody who could provide it to them. This is maybe their avenue. I'm not saying it's perfect by any means, but I think people should have the right to make a choice. And when there's 80,000 plus alcohol-related deaths in this country every year, 40,000 deaths from suicide, 6 deaths per day in this country from acute alcohol poisoning.
So again, it definitely raises a question. And so what you see is the 3 panelists that were on the right side come from more of an addiction background. The lady that talked about the Kratom Association, the other doctor that stood up, there's a third person there. If you watch the whole, and I don't want to show parts of, but for time's sake, I did kind of snip it. So in this second, I'm going to hear more about the American Kratom Association and some of this other stuff, but now it's specific to some of the products that we see in the head shops, the smoke shops, and gas stations.
And Dr. Holcomb, I want to ask you a question as a follow-up, because I actually hear you loud and clear when you say that. But here's where I get concerned with complete lack of regulation. 30, it says, and I don't even know what that means.
We don't know how much that is.
And I read the back, there's no dosing in this. I could go buy this at a convenience store, and it just says, do not use while operating a motor vehicle, machinery, if you're pregnant or nursing.
Can I speak to that?
And so this is what I get concerned with, is not people necessarily using it in a way that does help them, because clearly I don't want to take away from what Chris and Susan have experienced and your own particular path. But what I worry about is this. If I can go buy this, I have no idea what's in it, and I'm a kid or an adult, quite frankly, and I go pop a few of these, and I end up under the bridge.
I don't think anybody here is opposed to control and oversight or selling to people under 18. Regulation. So, but I think if you go backwards instead of forwards, you're going to have people buying illicit substances that are more dangerous, and it's going to be counterproductive and dangerous.
I'm curious how far apart the two sides are, because, again, we're all hearing about this for the first time. If you're not involved in this, most people have never heard of it. Is the biggest battle regulation? Do you all believe in regulation?
I believe 100% that this needs to be regulated. I have a lot of experience in the supplement world. You know, I did a documentary, Bigger, Stronger, Faster. We went in and studied all these supplements.
So you acknowledge this could be dangerous and is dangerous being unregulated?
Not acknowledging it could be
it's
dangerous.
great to get a documentary. I used to run supplements for the FDA, so that's a nice experience. These are all illegal products, and when they're making claims to treat addiction, to cure chronic pain, supplements don't do that. So the notion that they're accepting and embracing regulation is somewhat laughable when they're talking about addiction. They're talking about chronic pain. We have products like that in this country. They're called, and you know what? And if the data is that compelling on Kratom working, then it's to your advantage to submit that data for review by the federal agencies that have that charge, and they can, you know, those are scientific experts that can say.
We're the head of the FDA, yet you just
looked at
said.
as a supplement.
Right, and it shouldn't be. It's not a supplement. When you're looking to treat pain, and again, even as a supplement,
as a dietary supplement,
there are requirements requirements for safety that none of those companies, and those companies made considerable amounts of money, have invested in putting that forward. Everyone's hiding in the shadows. Why? If it's that great, wouldn't you come forward with it?
And I think it's worth pointing out the way supplements are regulated is that they're not to make claims about treating disease.
Exactly.
So I think the difference is that you're talking about treating pain and treating depression, which are medical conditions
about
as
helping
opposed
manage these types of conditions. We're not talking about treating or curing.
That's still a disease claim
We're talking
by
about
federal law.
We're talking about helping things. We're talking about this as improving our health and well-being.
And 15
I would not
people
be.
died from kratom in the last 2 years.
15
And
have not.
and
Absolutely.
We have psychosis as side effect in our detox
prove
in Arizona.
it.
Come to Arizona,
There have
come to
been
Decision
15
Point,
deaths.
look into our detox.
Excuse me.
Every 2
15
months we
deaths.
get one client coming in. It's not a large amount. You know, we get 40 clients a month in our detox. It's not a large amount from kratom.
Each one of those
but
deaths
when they
had
do,
another drug
we
involved
treat them the
in the
same as
system.
heroin or opiates.
There are 40
Come and
deaths
witness
per year
that side.
from
I hear what you're
Suboxone.
saying. I'm not completely disagreeing with what you're saying in your personal experience, but what I'm saying is we need more information.
Well, and that's why this debate is so compelling, because when you lack information, you're making guesses. And I feel like I'm up here on this stage, and I came into this debate completely open-minded, and I feel like I still need more information.
Correct.
Because I understand completely where you're coming from. I'm drawn to the arguments that there's absolutely no formal studies out there, and we're just having people wing it. That scares me.
I think we can probably agree, at least from the medical side, that it sounds like there is potential. There's definitely possibly a nice role for this, but just it hasn't been adequately studied. We don't know the dosage. We don't know some of the other potential side effects, interactions, things that we like to know when we start to make claims.
Are any
about
formal
treating
studies
disease. So I think
in
she
the
was
works?
starting to tell
there
us
have
about
been
when it's
studies at Ole Miss, at the University of Massachusetts. There are studies going on right now at Stanford University, at Columbia
They aren't
University.
adequate to get things in the food supply.
and
Even things like
Sloan
this
Kettering.
had to do really substantial. We're talking about replacing sugar. They're talking about replacing opium, heroin,
Most of the
Suboxone. So
antidepressants
again, I
on the
think
market
this
have
is the
black box
food.
warnings, and we're told that they're okay. And now
Right.
now
That's
the
a drug.
effectiveness
That's
of
not a
those has been called
food.
into question.
This country has laws. We generally try to follow them.
Well, we need a
So-
transition period if the framework doesn't allow for this. And medicine, supplement, anything you put in your mouth or your body, you're looking for some physiologic response. Whether you take an antacid, you take a laxative, you take Tylenol, but I think that sort of rigid approach is counterproductive, and I think you can't measure the lives that will be lost if you withdraw this.
So I want to ask the three of you, because addiction specialists and Daniel, you've spent so much time dealing with these types of issues. You have three individuals here whose lives have been, they say, improved, whether directly or indirectly, by using this. How do you move forward in a way that doesn't completely wreck their lives, get the studies, and if this does prove to be beneficial in some way, shape, or form, do it in the right way? Is there any path forward? Because that's where I'm not an expert, I'm not a regulator, I'm just a doctor.
There is a path forward, Travis, and it's pretty clear. It's outlined in the Food, Drug, Cosmetic Act. If you're going to sell as a supplement, one, you're not going to make these types of claims, and two, there are studies that need to be done. Those studies haven't been done. The companies selling the products haven't reinvested in the science to show that these side effects, there's clearly questions of harm here. So I think that given our structure, that we don't want to put it, just like 3 people have been helped, there have people been harmed. So there's potential for harm. We owe it to not just 3 Americans, but all Americans to make sure that that potential isn't real. And that's the basis of our laws. And anyone who wants to sell a product should have to go through, there's no special exemption. My daughter also thinks that when I kiss her finger and she has a boo-boo, that it helps it heal. Well, my lips aren't getting approved by the FDA anytime soon, no matter how much she believes that.
And so you can see both sides of this argument, right? Obviously, some different testing is needed, some other things is needed, but here is kind of the uniqueness. If you talk to people that are understanding of the plant, what happens? There is 5 different colors or veins of the kratom plant, and if you look at the chart on the right. Depends if it's dried indoors or outdoors, if it's a climate-controlled room with moisture, and if it has little or no light added to it when it goes through the drying process. There's a active chemical, very similar to if you break down marijuana, right? Marijuana has several different chemicals that are involved, THC, CBD, Delta 7, Delta 8, Delta 9, and so it's the same thing with this plant. Mitragenine is that active ingredient in this. And if you see the 7-HMG, that red vein is going to act more like a euphoric effect. Whereas if we have longer drying process, you're going to see that it acts more like an analgesic. And so again, we see this with the strains of marijuana, whether you're having an indica or a sativa strain or the blends of those strains, you find that if you go consistently to someone knows how to grow this, they seem to actually curate a product that may work well for a patient. And we're seeing the same thing with Kratom. The problem is obviously, what are they testing at Ole Miss and, uh, uh, Stanford? So are we seeing a younger plant that's not grown the same way or not dried the same way as an older harvested plant? And so it all becomes part of the process. Some strain comparison guides that are out there. Again, white kratom, it's harvested from a young tree, so it's going to be fairly high in moisture. So it's going to change that drying process too. And so that's the kind of the relationship between a young plant or an old plant is the moisture content that's in the byproduct after it gets um, dried and then harvested, and then the higher mitragenine is in those strains. And then when we go into the red vein or green vein in that drying process, it's going to add more of the mellow effects or the sedative effects of the plant. And so, love for you guys to have this information there. One of the other points that was raised on the program is very consistent with what we see in our world, especially in the substance use community, right? Most of the time when we're treating people, it's for multiple or polysubstance use. It's not just one thing. And so that becomes the bigger issue when they're trying to highlight or see overdose potential, deaths from this. The problem is it's masked because there's other substances that are also being used. Most of the time we see people using polysubstance. So it's very difficult to say, well, did they die from this or did they die from something else? Some of the effects that we know of with kratom, even in small doses, is the nausea, the itching, the sweating. So you're going to have some of that, but then you also get into the seizures, the hallucinations, etc. Can it be addictive or is it addictive? Absolutely. When you look at how treatment facilities use this, they go right with the DSM-5 and treat it like it's an opioid disorder. It acts very similarly. So SAMHSA, that's what they recommend for treatment. It is addictive, and so I think that's why the FDA has never tried to give a blessing on this as anything other than a dietary supplement, because to claim that it does do pain relief or anything like that, that's one of those things that's got to be investigated because it's now a drug. Some of the other things, SAMHSA's got some information about kratom. Uh, Kratom can be contaminated. Obviously, we don't have, in addition to the testing, we don't have the ability to know where this stuff comes from. So even though it's packaged, it's sold in head shops, smoke shops, gas stations, we don't necessarily know how that stuff is packaged, if it's free of contaminants, because there's no set testing and standards for how this stuff is. What's a dosage size? Is it 5 milligrams? Is it 30 milligrams? So until all of those things are there, you're not going to understand some of those things. We've talked a little bit about this withdrawals as well. You're going to see some of those signs and symptoms. Again, if we're treating patients that, a stimulant, what are we going to see? Usually when we do the eye thingy right on the side of the road, the horizontal gaze nystagmus, we're going to see with a stimulant that you're going to have fixed pinpoint pupils that are non-reactive to light. So if you have somebody that has those small dilated pupils and they don't move, so okay, so you're going to have some of that. And when you try to, take a flashlight and the pupil of the eye isn't going to react to that. That's very common with stimulants. The problem is I don't know what kratom is. I don't know that we actually have somebody on a traffic stop that didn't offer that they weren't on another substance, not just kratom. So it's anecdotal, and I don't know the answer to that. Are we going to see some of the effects where our DREs are seeing? It's more like a sedative medicine, like an opiate. I don't know the answer to that because it also does act that way. So does it change how the eye reacts? I don't know. So great question to ask, and I'll try to find the answer to that. But you're definitely going to see some of those other things. They do identify some deaths from kratom. However, um, kratom is detected. It doesn't mean that that's the only drug on board. So in 2019, they had 100 deaths. 2023, the CDC identified a lot more deaths with kratom, mitragenine, or that being partial contributor to the deaths. So again, we know that it's getting used more and more frequently just in the 4 years of these studies. The problem is how much more we don't know because a lot of time it's also part of what's on board. We know that several countries have banned this, and I find it kind of interesting that countries that have made this illegal are in that Pacific Rim where this plant is grown. Thailand, Australia, Malaysia, but also several European countries. It is legal in some of the states. Right now, 6 states have banned kratom. 9 states have restrictions on kratom. Michigan is one of these now. 2014, we passed the Kratom Consumer Protection Regulatory Act. But again, Lara was put at the forefront of this, just like tobacco, alcohol, and marijuana. And as long as you file for a $200 license, you can be a facility that sells kratom. It doesn't get into sizes, doses, or anything like that. There's nothing in the packaging that has to be labeled, other than the fact that if the product has kratom, it has to be labeled on the product. But it doesn't say what a dose or what a size is. So it's really interesting in that because a lot of times we'll see this in pill form, but that's not the only way we see this. We have all sorts of kratom products. And again, whether it's a drinkable, a tea, or it's in an energy shot, you'll see that it talks about, that K shot, right? Kratom is the active ingredient. And as long as it says that it contains kratom in Michigan, it's okay. For those of you that are fans of Jermaine Galloway, Tall Cop Says Stop, he has highlighted this several times. The first time he really saw this was a while ago. He first saw this product in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He thought it's called Feel Free. And again, the reason this kind of hides and it might not be seen and it's still sold is because the first ingredient is kava. But again, Feel Free is one of these things. We see it popping up all over the place. Anecdotally, the IGA or Harbor Market in Harbor Springs sells this stuff. I don't know if they do have a license, don't have a license. I haven't asked, but it is flying off the shelf. We have a lot of teen use. And again, there is no age restrictions on this that I know of. We also see here a different form of this. Kava is the first ingredient listed. And so, kratom kind of hides there. But we talk about the kratom and then 7-OH. And those are all kava, 7-OH, and kratom are in DEA fact sheets. If you guys want to find those, that information will give you a little bit more about the product. And again, some of the precautions to consider. The Food and Drug Administration still says not to use kratom. They say it's not appropriate for use as a dietary supplement. However, they're not stopping it. They haven't banned it federally, and some states have laws against it, but not all. And so their warning is that kratom is not lawfully marketed all the time because it shouldn't be marketed as a drug product that has any propensity to help wean people off of opiate dependence. It's a dietary supplement, but it's not something that should be added to foods in a conventional manner. One of the things that is worth highlighting is the fact that there's a huge uptick in the statistics that we saw from 19 to 23. And in a report, Frontiers in Pharmacology, the NSDUH said that this was a regional but a white middle class phenomenon. So it does seem like there's a group of people that have kind of honed in or weaned in on using this, whether it's for dietary supplement or to, wean themselves off of other types of addiction. It's kind of interesting. So that's what I know about the product, and I just kind of want to leave this to you if you guys have questions in the chat.
There's a question. Is there any information related to Kratom being linked to psychosis even years after using it?
Yeah, again, until we see it used in some sort of analgesic form, I don't know that there is going to be testing. Kratom, very similar to salvia, right? You can go on YouTube and you can see kratom and salvia trips that people have taken and that psychosis, right? The paranoia. So I would think that it's going to be, the recommendations that we're seeing are that this is something that they treat just like an opiate dependence. So I would think that anything that comes along with opiates, heroin, et cetera, are probably something that we're going to see. I see here. Is there a big difference in the effect and the safety from synthetics versus natural kratom? Um, I think the reason that you see synthetic kratom, right? It's just if you can get something that reacts the same way as a plant, you can synthesize it. You don't have to worry about your plant suffering from drought or blight or anything like that. It's very similar to what we see in the tobacco industry with chemically created um, nicotine, right, and vaping. Now you don't have to worry about actually growing a tobacco plant. It's the same thing that we see with marijuana with chemically made THC. I think that it probably acts the same. It's just a cheaper way to manufacture and create the same effect. So, I think it's just a way to not have to worry about a forecast and a climate grow. You don't have to worry about a plant. You can chemically make it. Question in the chat about PowerPoint. Yeah, we'd love for you guys to be able to have the PowerPoint. We're recording this, but in addition to, you've also got the PowerPoint. Christy already had that in an email, so you have that, and feel free to circulate it.
There's also a question about has there been any research into interaction with medications?
Oh, great question. I see that's from Jamie. I would assume it's, because of the fact that we see all these polysubstance use, um, we probably haven't isolated specifically what kratom does when it interacts with other things, because it's not being prescribed. It's not, there's no clinical studies that will show just what kratom does with other things. So, anecdotally, we'll see, from blood results what happens to a patient when they overdose or something like that. But until it's actually researched and studied, I don't think we're going to know what it does with other things. Charlie says something about the synthetic kratom and deaths recently. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? The same thing that we see with marijuana. You're going to find that this is going to work differently in different people. I don't know, who makes synthetic kratom and how they know that it's similar to the plant. It's going to be interesting to see how they test that, and to make sure that because again, well, is it the younger plant that has more of a stimulant effect, or is it the older plant that has more of the analgesic pain relief? Yeah. So, that'll be interesting when we see University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, and Stanford when they come out with this. How did they test the kratom plant specifically, right? Did they test a couple different forms of the kratom plant? So these are all great questions that I don't have the answer to. Remember, I steal things. So. What are they trying to achieve when they use those shots with kava and kratom? Again, when you see kava and kratom, and this is just kind of anecdotally what I've heard, they're taking them like an energy shot. So they want that younger kratom plant, right? They want that pep me up type thing. So they're trying to use it like a stimulant. So almost like a 5-hour energy or any type of energy drink. That's what they're trying to use it as. I talked to someone once who said it was harder to detox. I wouldn't doubt it. Again, it probably depends on how much you use, how often you use, and what type or variant of strain that you're using when you use kratom. Megan says that you guys do test it here. So what type of, how big is the panel that you guys use then when you test, Megan? Do you know? Is age regulated for purchasing? I had heard anecdotally in Michigan, you have to be 18. Everything else, alcohol, marijuana, you have to be 21, and cigarettes, you have to be 21. So I don't know why they use 18, but I would have to double check on that. Is there any legislation in the works? Great question, John. Very quickly, the donkeys and the elephants were able to nip things like bath salts, K2 spice, different things like that. This is one that they've kind of backed off of originally, probably about 22, 23. There was legislation that was proposed. And then when we got this new kind of Congress that came in after the election, there hasn't been much talk about this. So it's nice to see that they have Laura have a little bit of oversight and licensing on this, but other than the licensing, they haven't done anything yet. Kratom, Salvia, there's a couple different things out there that I would really like to see some action taken because until there is testing, et cetera, I think it's really important that we try to get a grip on this before we have this epidemic in, certain age groups, certain didactics in our community. Since it isn't illegal in Michigan, what would you be directing pregnant women to use? Again, I mean, we know how good breast milk is when when you have a newborn. The problem is if you're passing that stuff through breast milk, very similar to marijuana. We've seen where chronic users of marijuana have passed around, and created, pretty significant addiction into their baby. So that's a great question for someone smarter than me. Megan, again, a 10-panel drug test is what they use. It is expensive. On the substance use side, I don't know what they do when they screen clients. But obviously a 10-panel will catch it. But I don't know how it comes across and if if it does. Stephanie, a new Kratom bill has been introduced. Do you know if it was in the House or in the Senate? Probably just read down a little bit. It says that Kratom products in Michigan. Anyone starting January 1st, 2027 must obtain a license. That's actually already passed. The license is $200. That actually passed in 2025. So yeah, there are the head shops up by me. It's the Wild Bill tobacco stores. Most of them carry the Kratom product, and so it's a $200 license. Laura's already doing that. But it also talks about Kratom products be labeled. So that will be a change. So maybe that's the difference from 2025 to 2027. And here's the other part. Age of 21, and it also has $1,000 fine. The law right now does not have that. It also says that there is other promulgated rules starting in January 2028. So there is coming, it's a House bill. So what you gave us there, 2025-HIB, so that's a House bill. So hopefully we'll see some effect. We'll see it go through the Senate, maybe a different version, and we'll see what comes out the other side and if it's actually signed by the governor. But yeah, it'll be nice to see some of these changes because it looks like it actually gives that bill now a little bit of teeth if they don't follow up and do licensing. So, and Marie, again, very good. Yeah, I would also agree with that. The doctor clip did say that they said do not use for pregnant women, people that drive and stuff like that as well, operate heavy machinery. Lynn Gallagher, is there anything specific you would suggest how we can make a difference? Education, right? Again, part of it is though we learn in the prevention side that you don't want to educate people that have no clue what this is because now you're teaching, so it's got to be age appropriate. But I would think especially parent teacher conferences, talking to other adults, talking to your local congressman, let them know how you stand and what you see when it comes to these substances so they can apply it for the bill or maybe change or make alterations to the bill before it goes through the House, the Senate, and becomes law. That'd be all great things. And then Alvin, sorry, I see that you have an otter. Lynn, as always, you guys are welcome. Appreciate you guys sticking in with me today. Hopefully this gives you some more information because I know that you probably are dealing with it, whether it's just anecdotally or you are seeing a little bit of an uptick with it. So anything that we can do to help give presentations or whatever you need in your community, we would love to do more of these. But feel free to ask. And Bridget, thank you, appreciate it. But yeah, absolutely. And just want to thank you guys today.
All right. Thank you, Corey, for sharing your time and insight today. A lot of good information. I learned a lot. I never really knew much about Kratom.
Me either.
I also want to just thank everyone that attended this session. We hope the information was valuable for all of you. Today's presentation is just one of many webinars being offered throughout September as part of our Recovery Summit. For details and registration for upcoming sessions, please visit our website at www.sccmh.org under the Events tab. Also, keep an eye out for a short survey in your email. Your input is vital in helping us continue to improve and shape future events. For those requesting McBath and peer certificates, they will be emailed out mid-October. If you're requesting social work CEs, your certificate will be emailed out after your payment's received, if applicable. Thanks again for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you all at our next sessions. And thank you again, Corey.
You got it.